Hi, my name's Starsky and welcome to From the Studio on Clubbing TV. In this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at a tiny but really powerful little synth. It's the Modal Skulpt SE. As you heard in that demo track, this is a really powerful little synth. It's really portable, it's really light, it's battery powered. In here, I've got 6 batteries using rechargeable, as we all should. On the back, we've got the choice of either battery or USB for power. Got the USB connector, and that connects to your iPad or your iPhone or your computer, where we've got the Modal app. It's a free app, and I'll show you that in a minute, and that works with all Modal synths. We've got a headphone output, line output, and we've got a sync in and a sync out, so you can sync it with external gear. Plus we've got 2 full-size 5-pin MIDI ports for connecting up to pretty much whatever you like in the studio. And because it's so portable and battery operated, it's perfect for those ideal location shots for your Instagram account, showing how you can play your toys in the woods or in a field. And the front panel is a little bit strange in that the layout of the knobs are sort of diagonal and a bit haphazard really. We've got the ADSR envelopes. Instead of having 4 knobs next to each other, they're in this sort of diagonal pattern. So when you first try and use it, you are sort of looking around for where everything is. But once you've got your head around it, it's pretty simple. But I do think that's why they've made the SE, just to make things a little bit clearer than it was on the original synth. This has got black and white keys. The original had all black keys. And here we've got these little lines sort of showing that these 3 are linked, that these 4 knobs are linked as well, whereas it's slightly different on the original. We've got a shift button, so each of these buttons and knobs has 2 functions. The first function is written in white and the second is in orange. And just to show how that panel works, this is the cutoff and this is the resonance. And we can see the lights on the keys indicating the value of each parameter. If I press shift, this becomes the morph function and this changes the shape of the filter. So change it to a high pass, back to a low pass. It's also got a built-in sequencer that goes up to 128 steps, and it's got 4 lanes of motion, but I'll show you that on the app because it's a lot easier to see than on this. But let's just show you quickly what the app looks like. And this is a really good way of showing the functions that we've got in the synth itself. We've got 2 oscillators, wave 1. And wave 2. Change the mix of that. And the second oscillator having noise as a wave shape is quite interesting because we've got FM and we've got ring modulation on this. So you're using noise as an FM and a ring modulation source, which is quite nice. And you can get all sorts of sort of quite noisy and soft, really nice sort of distorted sounding tones with it. And I'll show a couple of those later. We've got a state variable filter that morphs from a low pass to a band pass to a high pass. We've got 2 LFOs with various wave shapes and they can be synced. We've got 3 envelopes. We've got filter, amplitude and modulation. And then we've got 8 modulation slots, and you can see those across the bottom here. And we've got various sources and loads of destinations. Straight away then you can see it's got an awful lot of functions for a £170 tiny synth. It is virtual analog, it's not an analog synth, it's all DSP based in here. But I've done something on my YouTube channel demoing this against the Dave Smith or Sequential OB6, and that's a £2,500 synth with a similar sort of state variable filter, and it's very difficult. Well, it's not difficult to tell them apart, but it's difficult to say which is the analog and which isn't the analog, because virtual analog circuitry and algorithms have come on so much, and this sounds really nice. It can sound really crisp and clean, and it can sound really dirty. So let's start off by taking a look at the oscillators. I've set these up on the initial patch and we start off with 2 sine waves. Let's mix that, so we're just listening to oscillator 1. So it goes from a sine to a triangle and then to a sawtooth and a square. And then we can change the pulse width of that. So you can get all those classic PWM sounds. Now, wave 2 is slightly different. Let's change the mix. So now we're just listening to wave 2. And that again goes from a sine to a triangle to a sawtooth to a square. But now we don't go to a different pulse width, we go to noise. And then it goes to virtually nothing, which is quite useful actually when you're using ring mod or FM. But the noise is really good as well because it goes from white to pink to brown. So you get those different sort of filtered textures of noise, which can be really useful as well. So you're not using your filter to do things like that, and you can use your filter for something else. Just nice little touches that they've put in this all the way through that make you realize they really know the synths and are used to programming them and know what's going to be useful. Now the tuning on these is slightly different to a normal synth in that you don't have independent tuning of oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. Oscillator 2 tuning is dependent on oscillator 1. So we have different intervals, which are the sort of things that you program when you're programming a sound. And if we do want to detune them slightly, we've got the fine tune knob. So we can get those thick, rich, analog sounding tones. But then we've got its secret weapon, and this is something that makes it into a bit of a special little synth, is this spread function. And what that does, it takes one of the oscillators, or each of the oscillators, and turns them into 4 separate detuned oscillators. So we'll just listen to oscillator 1 for now. So that's just a single oscillator. I'm going to bring in the spread. We're getting 4 detuned oscillators. And then when you detune them far enough, you start getting chords with the 4 oscillators. So with a single oscillator, we're getting a 4-note chord. Then we can bring in oscillator 2 as well. And what we're getting there is a 4-note chord played with 2 oscillators, so we're getting an 8 oscillator chord. But I think I've exhausted the oscillators now. Should we move over to the filter? As I said in the intro, it's state variable, and that's slightly different to something called a multi-mode. In multi-mode, you have a low pass or a band pass or a high pass or whatever. In this, you can move gently from a low pass to a band pass to a high pass. So there's loads of really nice things in there. And what I really like about this is the sound of that filter. It's got a really nice tone to it. If you just bring up a single sawtooth and just play through that resonance, you'll hear it sort of sings. It's got a really nice sort of musical quality. You can really hear that picking out those frequencies. It's really nice. Let's then change that again to that chord, shall we? See what that sounds like. So all sounding very nice so far, isn't it? So let's try a little bit of modulation. Let's put a little envelope on that filter, shall we? And now maybe let's put some LFO on that as well. So we go to LFO and modulate the cutoff, and we've assigned that there now. We can see how much we've assigned it by. We can go either positive, or negative. That sounds quite nice. Let's try and modulate the filter shape as well then with LFO2 just to see what happens. Should we take a quick look at the FM and the ring mod? Taking a look at the ring mod first, what ring mod does, it takes the sum and the difference of the frequencies coming through the oscillators to create really sort of weird inharmonic tones. And they're the sort of tones you use to get bells and clangs, but also to get some nice inharmonic sort of nasty bass sounds. And I've not even touched the distortion yet. So the FM and the ring mod are really nice for bringing out sort of different harmonics in tones. And especially when you modulate the wave shape as well, you start to get all sorts of different things coming out of a really simple sounding original patch. And we've not looked at the sequences, so let's take a quick look at that, shall we? And on top of that now we can put 4 lanes of automation. So let's just play with the wave shape, shall we? Let's play with wave 1 on automation lane 1. And then play with a cutoff on lane 2. So you get the idea, you've got 4 lanes of modulation, you can get all sorts of crazy stuff going on. You've got 128 steps to do that. And using the app is a really good way of editing all those modulation lanes. So you've heard what it can do, but is it for you? So all in all, for £170, it's a great little synth. There's an awful lot in this box. It is in a crowded market. There's things like the Korg Volcus to look at, but if you want something to go and sit in the woods or sit in a field and play, this is well worth checking out. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, don't forget you can catch it whenever you like on our Clubbing TV YouTube channel on the From the Studio playlist. And if you're into your synths and your drum machines and your studio tech in general, do check out my Starsky Carr YouTube channel, where I've got a lot more in-depth analysis of synths, and I've got an in-depth look at this as well. So I will see you in the next episode of From the Studio.